It's Cash Wednesday. So,
No, I think that's fancy.
it's one of their Easter traditions.
16, 17, 18, 19.
Yeah, when
Yeah,
you're Catholic and you go to like mass or
But that's voting.
Ash Wednesday, they
Full
take ashes and like
attendance is
draw across in your head.
them plus them.
You can take it off, but most people just choose to leave it on.
That section is attendance. But you can always count that off of the sign-in sheet.
Yeah, I'm not Catholic.
We don't have quorum, but we don't need it. It's fine. We're not voting.
Darn.
Yeah.
That time.
Some big fancy meals.
Yeah, Jen told me to go treat myself. And I told her I ordered her flowers, but I'm gonna go to Mr. B's after this.
I got
Treat
flyers.
myself.
I got flyers.
I'm treating myself.
I'm making a big mess with salmon for dinner.
Yeah.
It's Aaron's turn. It is 4:30, so we're going to go ahead and get this meeting started. As always, we'll start with our Pledge of Allegiance. Madison, will you lead us?
Sure. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The minutes from the previous meeting were emailed out to you all. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented? All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Minutes passed. Do we have any old business at this time? Seeing none, we're going to go ahead and move into new business. Our first item of new business today is a report on academic advising from Emily Cornwell.
All right, so for those of y'all that remember, a couple of weeks ago, I brought up academic advising, just like mentioned it a little bit, because I had a lot of students, just like in conversation with them, mention to me that they had some problems with their academic advising, or they were just frustrated with something that they had going on with their advisor or their advising session. There's a few different things that I've heard. And so I also talked to a few other senators, and they heard of like some of the similar issues, so that's why I decided to bring it up. And I talked to Tori, and she asked me to just like kind of compile like a list of the problems that I had heard of and issues that we were running into, and then look into what some other universities do for their academic advising, what their practices are, and the systems that they have in place for advising. And so I talked about that with her, and so that's kind of what I'm going to share with you guys what all I found. And the goal for this is to just open up a discussion. So it isn't a whole lot of information, but I just want to like make a foundation for you guys to talk about what you hear as far as advising goes. If you have any ideas, or if you think there's something else that we need to look at that I'm not looking at, please say. So the first thing, I just wanted to talk about some issues that I had been running into. So just overall, advisors being hard to reach was a really popular one. Them not replying for weeks, or just not being able to figure out how to reach their advisors, not knowing where to go, who their advisor was, things like that. Not knowing how the scheduling works. So especially for freshmen or like newer students, maybe transfer students or something, not knowing like where the scheduling is coming from. They're looking at this racer audit, I guess, and if it's completely empty, if they don't have any slots filled, they're not even gonna know where to start or where the scheduling is coming from, where the advisor's getting these courses. So even if they have any questions, they're not even gonna know what those questions are. They don't even know what to ask their advisor. And then as far as like big decisions, as far as like changing a major or doing something else that's a big academic decision, there isn't really a whole lot of insight with that from advisors, even if they need to like be pointed to career services or to career counseling, something like that. They aren't really getting any of that direction from their advisors. And then a lot of what I hear is students go to their advisory meetings and they just get handed like a list of classes that they're supposed to take. And that's just kind of tailored off what their major is and not really to that specific student. So depending on like if they've had classes beforehand or what they want to do or their plans for the future or anything like that, it's just here's your major and here's your classes. And that's kind of frustrating to some students is what I understand. So I just wanted to read to you. I kind of like posted out there and just like went back to people who I had heard had problems. So I was just going to tell you some of like the specific things that I had heard. One of them was, I know I had a question for maybe like some of the business senators here. Some of the business students that I talked to said that one of the business advisors had messed up a lot of their schedules and it was easy to do because you don't get an actual advisor until your junior year is what they said. Is that any different? And maybe does anyone else know? Is that different for business than it is for anyone else? Because I know I'm only.
We do have advisors.
Is it the same as everyone else? So I don't really know what the problem was with that. But I know that there was ones that, yeah.
Well, I know me personally, I had John Sonias for my freshman and sophomore year, and then I got a new advisor in my junior.
I
I'm the
think
same
that's
way.
maybe what they were.
Yeah.
I'm the same way.
Alluding to. Okay. So it's easy to like get, I don't know if that system makes it easier for business students to get schedules messed up or something like that, but I ran into a lot of business students who were having problems with their schedules their freshman and sophomore year. And so moving on from that, that's just some overall problems that I had been hearing. I'll tell you a little bit about what I found whenever I looked into other universities and their practices when it comes to advising. So first of all, I kind of looked around for some of like the best schools that were like had really good advising systems. And I tried to look for one that was kind of similar to Murray. The best I could really find was James Madison University. And theirs is, I'll go ahead and actually pull up their website. Did I have that? The big thing that stood out to me is their system kind of seems pretty similar. Okay, good.
Did you push escape?
She has to drag it over. Did you drag it over the screen?
Out of the screen.
What?
That's so weird. There we go. Okay. So their system seems pretty similar to ours. The only difference that really stood out to me was that they have one advisor, but a lot of students have two advisors. So if they're double majors, they have an advisor in each of their majors. They have an advisor for their minor. If they're like pre-professional, so like for example, on pre-law, I would have like a pre-law advisor and then like a normal advisor. I don't know how exactly that works in their system, but athletes would have two advisors, one to advise them on their academics and one that would advise them as like how their decisions impact their athletics. If you're an honors student, you also have an honors advisor. I'm in the honors college, and I know the honors advisors help me a lot, even though they're not actually my advisors. So that stood out to me on that. And then I also wanted to note that they have up here the role of the advisor, and then they also have the role of the student. So that's something that I saw duplicated a lot, is that universities emphasize that there is a role for the student and there is a role for the advisor, and how that impacts the relationship between the advisor and the student. Next, I'll look at NKU, and honestly, I was not impressed with their system, so I'm not really going to spend time on that. Theirs was terrible. But UK is where I went next. And I couldn't really find a whole lot of information about theirs. I don't know if I was looking in the wrong spot. It kept taking me to the College of Education. But I asked like some of my friends that I know that go to UK. And they said that it's really similar to ours, except they also, all students have a second advisor. So they have an academic advisor, and one of their departments had done like a partnership with student affairs. And so they also all have a student affairs advisor, and that just advises them on like scholarships, financial aid opportunities, residence life, any resources, student life resources that could help them, just other things on campus outside of just like their academics and their scheduling and their courses. So those can like go hand in hand, but sometimes they don't. So that could be beneficial. And then the big one I want to talk about was UNL. I think whenever I was talking to Tori about it, both of us were really impressed with UNL's advising. So theirs was the only one that was super prominent. Whenever you just go to like their website, that's where I went for all of these. So you just go to their page, and they have a page for about like all of these tabs, and it just tells a little bit about it. And then the structure of academic advising, theirs is different depending on what academic area you're in. So advising system changes. So like here, if you're a nursing major, your advising like your freshman and sophomore year is going to be different from the way it is for me in like the College of Arts and Humanities. So it changes depending on what you're in and what you're planning on doing. And I thought that was interesting just because it is so different. And then the big thing is you all have a copy of the flight plan. I'll go ahead and look that up. That's what they do, and that is actually very similar to what we have. So I'll go ahead and pull up our page where I went to look for more information over what our advising is like. I didn't really just base it off of what I've heard or like what I've had in my advising. And this is our advising website. Honestly, I think it's a little bit overwhelming. If I had a question and I came here, I wouldn't even know where to start. But I did go here, and this was where a lot of the information was that I was finding on the other websites. This is right here. One of the documents that I downloaded from our website, and it just tells about what advising is. Probably something that maybe an incoming freshman would want to know if they're not sure what advising is or what they're looking for in their advising meetings or questions that they need to ask. And then down here, it again tells the responsibilities of the student when it comes to academic advising, and I think that's really important to point out. And then again, the advisor's responsibilities. And then another document that I found on our website was this one, and that's probably our comparable document to the flight plan that I found on U of L's. So you fill in all the courses for each of your semesters. I think that's what it's meant to do. I would say the way it's laid out. I've never seen one of these personally.
I got one of those.
In transitions? Okay. I don't know. But that's helpful. I wanted to compare that to the U of L flight plan. What I really liked about this and what stood out to me was whenever you go through here, your freshman year, instead of just having a place for you to put your classes, it tells like the questions you need to ask your advisor and what you need to talk about with your advisor. That stood out to me because I know whenever I've met with my advisor, well, I've never honestly had a really positive experience with my advisor, but when I have had a meeting with my advisor, I never talked about anything other than like them giving me a list of classes I'm supposed to be in. And that's partly my fault. Like I wanted to talk about the role of the student. I just didn't know what I needed to be asking. So I think having this helps a lot. And then things that you need to do your freshman year to help be successful throughout the 4 years, just each year is the best way to go about that. So again, for sophomore year, talks about when you start looking for internships, where if you need to apply for your major or for the program you're wanting to go into, how you need to prepare for graduate school, professional school. things like that. And it talks about each of those along with the actual courses you have to enroll in. So that's pretty much it, honestly. My conclusion for the whole thing is that the actual systems of advising aren't a whole lot different anywhere else. The only difference would be the programs that have 2 advisors. I thought that was really neat. But other than that, it just seems to be the only difference is our actually executing the program. There seems to be a disconnect between like communicating with students about what they're supposed to be getting from their advisors, or communicating with advisors about their responsibilities and meeting with the students. So that seems to be what I came up with. I don't know if you'll have any questions, please, to add.
I do. I think just from talking with Emily when she presented this to me like the first time, and from this, like take back. So what can we take back from this, and how can we apply it to our university? I think the idea of having a second advisor sounds awesome because I remember as a freshman, I had a million different questions about scholarships and financial aid and everything under the sun. And you have a lot of different people that you go to for that. But the idea of having one person that you know you can call that can get you connected with that next person would be really comforting to me in general through my 4 years, just to have someone that's my academic advisor and then my actual student life advisor. So I kind of took that away from that, that I feel like would be a good resource. You also mentioned a lot about just educating what is your advisor supposed to do and what's your role as a student. And so how can we communicate that to the student body? And I thought about, as freshmen, they go through Great Beginnings and they go through all these key sessions that they're required to go through. Why don't we have a session about academic advising? What are you supposed to ask? What are you supposed to gain from it? And so that they're educated when they go in there. Because I think that's important as well. Like, how do you work your racer degree audit? And then my other thing was that I really enjoyed the flight plan. But I think even if we did this to freshmen, if we gave it out on a piece of paper, you're just going to throw it away. I mean, who's going to keep up with that for 4 years? But if we had something on MyGate that we could go back to, and your advisor actually look at, and them advising you on those things that were on the flight plan, like internships and are you looking into grad schools, and advising you beyond just scheduling classes. Because ultimately, if I'm really doing my homework, I can schedule my own classes. I mean, essentially we do. I mean, I'm the student that goes into the room and says, this is what I'm taking. So how are we as academic advisors like really advising on academics? Did anyone else gain anything, or like any like ditto hands on any of that, or anything you think would be beneficial? Yes, Katie.
Just to give feedback from what my RCC said, spring break majority is like a lot of honor students, so they're on it. They ask 1,000 questions. They felt like their advisors were really not catered towards freshmen. They were more catered towards people who knew exactly what they wanted to do. So if you weren't really sure, or if you had a lot of options with what classes you could take, they still felt like you should only take one straight narrow path, and then they wouldn't really let you go between any classes that you wanted to take, even though you knew that you could get everything done in 4 years of whatever was right for you.
Does anyone have any suggestions as to like the best way to address students to like know what they should be looking for in their advising sessions? Because I know whenever I talk to students, a lot of them felt like, okay, this is a requirement. I have to go meet with my advisor before I schedule classes, and they want what is in the whole. And there's a lot more to it than that. And I think that if they knew that, it would be very beneficial.
Well, I know, like my advisor, both my advisors, so far because they switched, but they both emailed me prior to me going in. They were like, have classes that you want to take already listed out, and get it all set up, and then I'll tell you whether I think that's a good idea or a bad idea, and we'll discuss what you want, like your goal is, your overreaching goal for coming to school year, and how long you want to go to school year, and different things like that. So I know mine was flat out told to me, what was expected.
I feel like talking to the advisors and seeing what they think they're doing good, and like maybe if they are like, oh yeah, we're doing pretty great, and you're like, oh, okay, you're not, you need to change it. And I feel like going to them and saying, hey, these are the problems that other students have that you're too scared to talk to our advisors about would be really good, and kind of opening their eyes to it, and then they can say, okay, well, here's the thing I need to change, here's what I need to inform the students about. And like they won't be able to do everything, but I think that would be a really good place to at least start.
Katie?
I know in the biology department, the advisors are evaluated by random students as well as the department chair, head, one of those groups. And I think one of the best ways that you asked for us to address it is to just clearly define the role of student and advisor when you do have your transitions class as a freshman, and then if you were a transfer student coming in, that there's some kind of session that they could attend. Just to briefly say, okay, this is what you, so that you're on the right track.
I think also a good point would be just to make sure that some of the advisors don't have too many actual people that they're trying to like look at, because I know I'm from the electromechanical. For a while, we only had one advisor for everyone. They had to break it up between three because he had almost 200 people under one person. So they had to break it up so everyone had money.
I agree with that because it seems like, at least from the student's perspective, that it's hard for advising to be a priority for advisors because they have so much on their plate already.
Heaven?
Is there somewhere that you can go when you feel like you're not getting everything that you should out of your advising session? Is there not like someone that you can go to and say, I don't feel like I'm getting the things that I need from my advisor?
I know online on our advising website it says go to your department head, and I know that's what I've done and it's helped.
There's another one.
There what?
You need to, there are two different places where it tells you, there's actually a short YouTube video that shows you how to go up the food chain.
Okay.
And so if that is on both the Get Help Now, and there's another link on it below as well. There are two different places. And
On
then
the advising website?
And then there's YouTube. Yeah. And I'm on there too, you know, see me. Yeah. Yes, I do. I'm Dr. Barbara Cobb, and I'm actually the coordinator of academic advising for the university. And I love what you're talking about, and I need all the help that you can give me.
Thank you.
Yeah. And anything that I can answer, I'm happy to. And I've already gotten some great input in terms, particularly on revising the website and providing some more, items on there and seeing what we can get on my page.
Thank you. Kevin?
Kind of regarding the freshmen coming in, because this is where kind of all starts, I guess. We get all these letters in the mail before we come here. Do we get any information in the mail or anything like that, or even emails that regard our advisor or what we have to do to talk to our advisor? Because I know that, we get our name number, we get this, here's this, here's, instructions on how to start your college career, but I never remember getting anything about my advisor. So I don't know if that's something we could possibly, look into. But I know like the music department is very different depending on what student you were in, depending on what advice you have.
Right.
So, but I don't really remember saying or getting anything that said, oh, your advisor is this person on this office in this floor. So,
Yeah. Jonathan?
I think, and I don't know how other colleges work. I know at the ag department, we do our transitions where a lot of our upperclassmen will help with the transitions class. And I've actually worked with ours as a follow, we call it follow leader, this past fall. And that was a good opportunity to just kind of break down, because like we only have like 15 to 16 students. And that gives them an opportunity to ask questions from upperclassmen, because I feel like some of the best learning that they get about their college experience is from students. And, they have advice on, okay, these are the classes you need to take in order. If you have any questions, talk to this person, things like that. Because a lot of times faculty, they're a little bit, I guess, distant from the student life sometimes. So it's hard for them to relate to that. I just feel like if other departments did that, it may be beneficial. Not sure. I just know it works really well for us. So.
That's good. I didn't know that.
I have a question, Dr. Cobb. Do our advisors go through a training on how to advise?
In the past, we have had training, but over the last few years, at the request of the advisors, it went to an online training, but there are no teeth. It is not a mandatory training. In the past, our new faculty members have gone through training, but at the moment, that also has gone to an online training and has kind of broken down. I think there's a lot of room in what you're saying to try to push certain administrators to help you. Maybe see what we can do to get our advisors back into something that, reminds them, because things change year to year.
Right.
And if our advisors are not in continual training, they're going to miss things. And so I think that there's a lot to be said about, said toward that. There's a lot to be said toward, for example, on MyGate, on your academics tab, if we could list your advisor for your major, your area, if you have a minor, your advisor for your minor, your athletics advisor. Many students do have more than one advisor, and that would be a very good thing. If a student's in an area, for example, they probably have only one advisor, but if they're an athlete, they have a second advisor. If they're in the honors program, they have a second advisor. And so that's a really good suggestion to get those contacts on there. In terms of, having a student affairs advisor, staffing. The way we've handled it, because we know we can't do that, is to have hands-on live people from bursar, scholarship, financial aid, and registrar's office available both at the beginning of the semester, and I think during the end schedule, the one stop. And they're also available by phone. And so, and if I can get the advisors to do the training, advisors should tell you before you do anything, contact, if you have a scholarship office,
Right.
Financial aid, don't drop a class and add another class until you check with the registrar, and so that's what we have in place to try to take the place of that, and I think transitions goes a long way in terms of smaller groups. I love the idea of trying to get every transitions instructor to bring in upper division students to work with the underclassmen. I think that's ideal. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful plan. The semester program guides, as of 2 years ago, they were supposed to be on every program's website. And so check your majors, check your areas, and see if they're on there, because there's supposed to be a 4-year plan on every single one of those pages. And we did a spot check about 2 years ago. Recently, we did another spot check and a bunch are missing. So we also did a spot check to make sure contact information for every area, major, and minor was on the program page. We did our second spot check on that, and some of those are missing again. And so it's an ongoing process. And I've gotten some good ideas about how to start rearranging the website. The website, it is unwieldy because we had to just dump a lot of stuff on it to get it on there. And but that is something that I'm continually looking to try to both simplify, but also make sure all the information is on there. And so these are certainly issues that we're wanting to contend with. There is a university advising committee. The advising committee is made up of 2 representatives from each of the schools and colleges. And the advising committee will actually be meeting next week. And Emily, I don't know if you're interested in coming, but we can talk about, it would be great for SGA probably to have, we had requested a permanent member of SGA to be on that committee a couple of years ago, but we were turned down. There was no one interested in being on the committee. And so I would love for for SGA to have a representative and to figure out a way to have that be a long-term. The committee only meets like twice a semester, so it's not like dumping work on you.
Right.
We will be having, we've been piloting some efforts for advanced scheduling to get information out. The first one was last spring. We had a table in the Paris Center with a sign on it that said, have you met with your advisor? Is your advisor full clear? Have you registered for classes? Do you know your career and professional plans? Just a sign. And I waved to people. Last fall, we put up 4 of them. Winslow, Harris Center, Library, and Faculty Hall. And this spring, we're gonna do a live effort, and we're gonna move back and forth between Waterfield and here, where we're gonna have cups with the advising logo on them, with the signs, plus the other signs in the other places. And we're like gonna be handing out like lemonade and ice water, trying to get students to talk to their advisors. And thank you for the input on that advisors aren't, they're losing that piece on career and professional planning, because it has to be there. I met with Career Services last week to talk to them about how to push the advisors on this. And it's really important because these people, your academic advisors, are in your kids' study, and push them, but they need to be the ones initiating the conversation. What are you planning on doing with your life? And we need to get them to do it. And a lot of the other problems that I'm not sure I can solve all of them, but I will start talking to people who might be.
Thank you.
And if there's any way that you can get word around that I'm here, and if you email me, I will email you back, and I'll find a way to start the process to solve the problems. Communicate. I mentioned to Tori before we started, communication is really hard. Another unit in student success did a whole Twitter campaign, and we checked the tweets that responses 6. So we know that didn't work. And so we need to figure out ways to communicate. I've gone out and worked with Regents College with their residential advisors. We started it with one of the other residential colleges, but weren't able to get it going. But I come out and do talks, with different groups, and I usually bring Ashley Rogers from the Racer office, because she can do magic things with Racer when you talk to her one-on-one.
Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions pertaining to academic advising? Thank you so much, Emily. Thank you both for coming as well. This is why we're here. This is why we do what we do, is to advocate for students and to better our university. So I really appreciate everyone's efforts today, and for everyone participating as well. Moving on, do we have any further new business at this time?
You want to talk about?
Yeah.
Okay. So, me and Tori have been talking about maybe doing some benefit or like fundraising for Marshall County for the student. Maybe going towards funeral costs or any other need anyone here. If you guys have any ideas or something, you thought about that. There was a benefit in Aurora, a restaurant that raised money. I tried looking into it and I couldn't really find what they put it towards, but
There's a young man that's been contacting our office, and he is doing a 3-on-1, sometimes a basketball thing at the Theater Street Center.
yeah, I didn't know if you guys had any ideas.
Maybe a hospital or reading at the shack.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe like a restaurant or something, and I don't even know like where we would put this money towards, like maybe towards, I don't know if there's like extra funeral costs or anything they're trying to raise money for.
I think you have to be really careful too, who you give the money to.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of people that are doing smaller fundraising, and you want to make sure that that money goes directly
Right.
where it's needed. So you might want to call someone in the Public Works office in Marshall County.
Okay.
Marshall County Rotary is making decisions on that amount of money, and there are 2 banks for which they have special accounts for any donations. So that's where you need to put.
Okay.
Any other ideas on actually raising money for this, between like events or dinners, or any ideas at all? Okay. Yeah, Katie.
I like the idea of the movie night, but probably like council, because I know a few of my organizations try to movie nights, and we make them about
Thank you.
twice.
Thank you.
I know the list for council for reading nights is which is super, super bad because this is the time of the season where the pre-organizations and everyone is doing that. Like with Richmond, they have one, and then we couldn't get one until like 4 weeks before.
I think at least, that the unique thing about this situation is that there's no true urgency, I guess you could say. Like they're going to need help very long term. And I know like the immediacy of hearing about it, people have really contributed. So even if later on, that'll still mean a lot whenever things have trickled down for them. So, but good comments. Thank you. And we'll continue to work on that and keep things updated. Thank you. Any other new business at all? Okay. Moving on into branch reports with Craig Lamb.
Thank you to everybody who, I was not here last week. I came down with me 2 weeks ago. I asked for some extra members on the judicial board for upcoming hearings. And thank you to Laura, who ultimately is going to be on the case that you've got pending on the docket. I had a lot of people volunteer, so I really appreciate you guys' support. And then there's no other business other than that. I want to say to all the gentlemen in the room, really anybody, if you haven't already today, reach out to your mother and wish her a happy Valentine's Day.
Becca.
Speaking of Donsole rebate night, go tomorrow because RCA is having a rebate night. So yeah, let's do that. Support your residential college, all the residential colleges really, because it helps us put on more programs. It's going to be a good time. Program wise, our lock-in that we've been working on is going to be March 2nd from I believe 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. at Winslow. There's going to be, the food will be provided, so you won't have to use a swipe or anything to get in. There'll be pizza, wings, burgers, just different desserts, things like that. There'll be a vegetarian meal option too, but I'm not quite sure what we're doing with that yet. We're still figuring that out. We're turning it into a philanthropy for Needline as well. So while we'll have the Minute to Win It games, when you win, it'll go to tallies for your residential college, and every tally towards your residential college is like a canned food drive item. And we're going to provide so many items for your residential college from how much participation you get and how many games your residential college wins. And that's going to be like our kickoff event for our new Needline food drive that we're starting. Cash Cart is going to be March 3rd. That's where we're going around with literally just a cart full of prizes to all the residential colleges. We're going to ask trivia questions in lobbies. It's going to be from 2 to 6 p.m. that day, so we're going to be popping in and out at different times, making our rounds to all the residence halls. An event going on in Clark, February 20th. They have Girl Scouts coming and selling cookies, because I know that we're all college students that really love our Girl Scout cookies. So from 6 to 7:30 p.m., February 20th, there will be Girl Scouts set up selling cookies in Clark's lobby. And that's all I have for you guys. Does anyone have anything for me?
Thank you. Moving into officer reports, Rachel.
No report.
Okay. Bailey is not here today. Did you have anything?
She just said she's sorry she couldn't be here today, and don't forget to do your office hour.
Woo. Madison?
So this morning we had the Valentine's Day Bears and the Mini Dunkers in the Kerr Center. Apparently it went really great. I showed up with the intent to help at 1:30 when I got out of class, and there were just a bunch of empty boxes. Apparently the line was backed up to the door. So thank Joe Coffey on Cab for putting that together. It was really popular and really successful. Next week, Friday, Christian, Jeannie, and I are going to NACA, which is the National Association of Campus Activities Conference in Boston. And so we're basically on the lookout to scout for new programming. It's a conference that's going to be full of stuff like the Build-A-Bear type events. There'll be guests programs, artists, that sort of thing. So it's basically just like getting a look at what some things we can look for in the future. So that'll be upcoming this weekend. And that's really all I have to report.
Awesome. Moving into my report. As you all know, elections are upon us. So I really hope within your position right now, you're letting people know about elections. So that means paperwork is due February the 26th at noon in the Center for Student Involvement. And I encourage all of you to find at least one person that you go to directly and encourage them to apply. So I encourage everyone to have at least one person that they know is going to apply for a position within SGA, because that's what's going to keep us thriving, is to be able to have people come in after you that are going to be able to build this organization up. And that starting with a strong Senate. I want my gift for the next exec to be able to start off strong. So if we can really have people applying for everything, that would be great. And all positions, including residential colleges, are on that formal ballot now. So that's something to think about as well. And feel free to send anyone down to the CSI office if they have any questions, if they want to talk to me or Jeannie or anyone about what it's like to be an SGA. I love to have that conversation. And so just feel free to come and visit us while we're down there. We're always really helpful. And then I also want to ask you all to think about, again, because we're almost at the end of your term, about the goals that you set for yourself. So I met with every single one of you, which was one of my goals, was to meet with you all. And I had each of you set a goal for yourself. And we're coming to the end of our terms, and I really want you to reflect back and think, what have I done in SGA this year? What have I truly contributed to this organization? And if you can't think of anything, you still have time to change that, because your term doesn't end for a hot minute now. Because even though elections come, we're still here as senators. So you still have that position. Make something of it within that time. I really want you to reflect on that, because it's not about sitting here every Wednesday at 4:30, even though we accomplish a lot during this time. It's about truly giving to the organization. So I want you to think about that goal and reflect on your experience. And if you need help or advice in accomplishing something, please come to me. I want to help you as much as possible, because I set goals for myself. And for the most part, I pretty well met them. Like I said, I wanted to meet with you all. I wanted to make sure that for every single meeting, we had an item of new business, because if we don't have new business, then what are we doing here, right? And then I also wanted to start up the live stream. We started up the live stream this year, and I wanted to revamp our social media, which has been killer, thanks to Brianna. So those are goals that I had, and so I'm hopeful that you all are thinking about your experience here as well. And then the last thing that I want to do for my report is tell you a happy Valentine's Day. Yay, spread the love, right? I'm so appreciative for all of you all and all that you do. And so I placed out there SGA thank you cards. So we're going to do a little thank you card writing session. So if you didn't pick up one, feel free to go and grab one. But we're just going to sit for a minute and just write a thank you card to someone that has made an impactful experience for you during your time at Murray State. And then you can deliver those later, so tomorrow or throughout the week, to someone that has hopefully made a positive impact with you as a student, or through an organization, or through you with SGA. So someone that's encouraged you along the way. So hoping y'all think of someone, and we're just going to take a few minutes. We're all just going to sit and write one to spread the love, right? I'm going to write mine.
Right?
What? Just a few minutes. Go ahead.
Anybody else in there? Anybody second?
It's a nice cardstock. It's really nice paper.
Anybody else need a pen?
Oh, yes.
You want to?
We're usually off on that. I'm just gonna have stuff ready at 6. Amanda?
Okay, so if you haven't finished yours, feel free to finish it later, but I just encourage you to make sure you actually deliver them at this point. I know this is not something we typically do, but I just feel like it's a good time for us to be able to spread the love and thank those that have done something for us. So moving on, that's the end of my report. Unless anyone has any questions for me, we're going to go ahead and move into director reports with Connor Moore.
Just reiterate what Tori said. Please be sure to challenge your friends to go out for these positions. We do have applications for, I believe, all of the executive positions right now. But feel free to keep sending more in. Still need more senators. Yeah, rush SGA.
Okay. Caleb Brandon.
No report.
Okay. Brianna.
Follow us on social media, share things that you see that are posted. And if you have anything that you want to see posted, just send it my way.
Thank you. Awesome. And Aaron is not here. We'll move into committee reports. Are there any university committee reports that anyone would like to present on? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move into our guest reports with the president's office. Dr. Pfister.
Good afternoon. How is everybody? Dr. Davies actually is in town, but he's in meetings today all day. He just wanted to say hello and also to let you know that he's working very hard on the budget aspects. Things that you bring up, he listens to as we Tori a lot to go forward with that as well as other constituents. As a reminder, next Wednesday, February 21st from 10 to 1 in the Rocking Chair Lounge. Bring your clothes that you can wear that are good clothes, or encourage faculty, staff, students to bring theirs, because we're providing that opportunity in the career closet so that people can go and have professional clothes so that they can look best for career opportunities. Any questions for me?
When did you say it was?
It's Wednesday from 10 to 1, 1 week from today, 10 to 1. So if you have some that you can't wear, or if you know other people who want to bring those, and then we will take care of getting them to the career closet, and they will take care of getting them dry cleaned. Boots is providing that opportunity for us. And then you can go through career services, or please let people know, and they can have presentable clothing to do what they need to do best. Anything else? Great. Have a good day.
Thank you. Dr. Robertson.
I don't think what y'all talked about when I stepped out, but obviously based on this discussion on academic advising, again, I will remind you of the award we provide for outstanding academic advisors. So obviously we do have some good academic advisors. So if you have one, some of the folks are talking about what their advisor does for them, please nominate that individual so we can recognize someone. I think after this discussion, it's obviously how critical strong academic advising is, and for those that are doing it well, we do want to try to recognize that. When I sent you, Tori, you may not have seen it yet, a link that gives the criteria and even the application process, so maybe you could then send it to everyone here.
Okay.
So they know how to nominate someone. Okay.
Thank you. Dining services. I think they have that.
Let me see, Friday is Chinese New Year, the year of the dog. And we're going to open up at 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock. So there'll be decorations and so forth. We're over there making some dumplings right now, homemade dumplings. And then there'll be early bird t-shirts to go along with it. Any questions on that? Black History Celebration on the 20th. We have a menu. We worked with SGA on setting that menu together for that. We have the International Organizational Dinner on March 14th. The Hot Wings Challenge on March 28th. Easter Brunch on April Fool's Day. End of the year picnic. We're looking at the 23rd, and that might change due to weather and so forth, locations. And the Iron Chef competition. Have we talked about that before? Okay. So that's something I want us to start thinking about and pushing. And then the last thing I have is I have some ice cream up here. It's not ice cream, it's made from coconut milk. And it is has a lot of allergens, dairy-free allergens with it, non-GMO and so forth. So there's some information about it. It's something we're looking at putting in a fast track. And so I've got some samples up here if y'all like to sample that later on. $1,950 worth of Valentine's items sold today.
Wow.
That's thank you, Ms. Kelly.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, last one, the guys came like 5.
Oh,
They
that's
were
a
doing
great
like,
idea.
How many girlfriends you got?
Does anyone have any comments or questions for dining services?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
I was in the tea room earlier, like close to when it was closing, and I noticed that there was a lot of food still out, even though it was about to close, and I was just wondering what we would do for food after it closed this time.
I think where you're trying to get to is what happens to the food afterwards.
Yeah. It was like 2 pieces.
the food has to be disposed of because of health regulations and so forth. So we try to do food production worksheets and keep on monitoring that down. So there is limited waste available. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we have the items out there for the people to come and get.
Yeah, that's understandable. I was just wondering, it's not, the waste isn't too bad. I mean, if you look, in the past, you would see full pans and stuff, so starting at 1:30 now, since the process is kind of changed, it's kind of changed. We start trying to cook a lot of stuff they order. But like you said, free regulations, you can only leave stuff out for so long. So after that period of time, we can't guarantee that, like, if we were to give it to people, that they're gonna take it home and heat it up properly, to get to that proper temperature. So that's more important, but, we have reduced it. In the last couple of years. So, yeah.
I have a question about the burritos and everything in Market 22. So I went there a couple weeks ago, got one, and I live off campus, so I don't have swipes or anything. I went up there and it was like $8 or $9 when I could have got the same thing if I'd have got it in the tea room for like $4 or $5. Is there a reason why it's so much more?
It's the same price. We moved the buttons that are on the micro screen in the tea room, we moved them to the Market 22. So, here with me after this, I can look it up and see if maybe it was done incorrectly. The price should be the same on the drinks too.
Yeah, I got the meal, or it was like a burrito and a drink, which should be like $4 or $5.
It's $6.99 for all of the entrees, tea room and in there, and then the fountain drinks, I think are $1.59 for the 24-ounce fountain drink. So, but yeah, we can. I mean, I'm pulling it up and double check them.
Anything else for dining? Christian?
I'm going to make this short. Just remember to go online and nominate any student, faculty, or staff for the Jim Bauer, the Max Carmen, and the Ralph H. Woods awards that SGA coordinates yearly, as well as your student organizations that you're a part of, that you guys nominate members, that other organizations nominate other organizations for, those different awards that the office coordinates downstairs every year too. So check those out. If you have any questions, let me know. That's all.
Thank you. Miss Jeannie?
If anyone's interested in some Washington DC internships, I have the information. There's still some for summer, and then there's taking them applications for fall. These are really good, and they have scholarships. So if you're interested in maybe working and living in DC for an internship time, get with me. One of the other things is, as you noticed, the Rocking Chair Lounge is no longer the Rocking Chair Lounge. The Rocking Chair is now in the CSI office. So we need to rename that area. So they're going to be sending out something for everybody to vote on names of what you think it should be. Christian came up with a really, really good name that we like. So it's going to be on the ballot, but we're not saying who to put it. But it's called The Square because it's a square area. So anyway, they're going to ask for suggestions, and then they're going to ask you to vote. So just be thinking about that. It's something that will be going on for a long, long time. They're also going to want to name another area. So this is for you to put input.
The dance lounge getting
I'm sorry, what?
The dance lounge getting everything too.
Well, it should be, because we don't dance in there. Many years ago, when this building was built, it was really a dance lounge. And there was a floor in there that was wood, and also the stables was, if you'll ever notice, it has lights, the track lighting, and that's where we take coffee houses. But things changed through years. That's all.
Announcements are just to get your paperwork turned in, and then we have our vacancies on there. Any other announcements from anybody? Okay, I'm going to read kudos. Applications due February 26th, hashtag Rush SGA. Happy Valentine's Day. Go find you a boo thing. Hashtag Rush Sigma Gamma Alpha. Kudos to the exec board of SGA because you guys' hair still looks great after such a rainy, gross day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Do I have a
game tomorrow night? Yes. We're tied for first place.
Yeah.
Go Racers. Do I have a motion to adjourn? All those in favor of adjournment say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We're adjourned. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
I'm supposed to have dinner ready by 6. It takes 45 minutes to cook it. That's not happening.
Thank you.
Ooh, I just put up way too.
Are you able to take this down to the office? I have class.
Wednesdays are my like,
So I'll disconnect
me
it.
and all my roommates will go out to
Yeah,
eat
that's
after
fine.
Senate summer
Who was it
plans.
she said I should contact? It was the Rotary Club of Marshall County.